All right, you lovely people, welcome. And we are in one of the final classes of this series. So, with my classes, I usually do three or four of them that build upon different skills. So, we have been building up our skills with sighting and sight sizing and lost and found edges and subtracted method and so forth to this point. And this particular series is all still life and combines all of those skills into one. After this series, we're going to be doing two totally different series and then starting with the skill building again. So that's kind of how the classes run, to keep you getting better and improving your work. Now, tonight we're going to be starting off with a subtractive method, but we're not going to be doing this for all three of the classes. So the image we're working from tonight has a very dark background, and I'm going to show you the method, and we'll do that part together. So you don't have to do it ahead of time. But the next two classes, we're going to move progressively from low key still life to high key still life. So what that means is the next class, we're painting something that's a little more detailed and a little less subtractive. And then for the last class, we'll be painting something that's more classical and not, it won't actually have any
Oh,
subtractive
great.
at all
That
in
looks,
it.
oh, I like that.
So that's just to tell you what's up. Now, for the palette we're using, it is the typical palette. I am adding black to this palette, but you definitely want to have some raw umber, titanium white, cerulean, or ultramarine, alizarin crimson, or cadmium red medium, and cadmium yellow medium. You want to have a color that makes a good orange. So, um, cadmium red medium and cadmium yellow medium are the best colors to make a vibrant orange. If you don't have cadmium red, you can use alizarin crimson. For my purposes tonight, I'm using cadmium red.
Bright and dark.
All right. Now, in terms of brushes, we're going to give our small brushes a workout. Normally, we use very big brushes, but the still life tonight is fairly detailed and intimate. So I'm using 1/2 inch flats for the most part. So I have 3 1/2 inch flats. One of them is a softer bristle, and I'll use that as a blender. Have a bright and a small liner. So I'll put these up here. 3 1/2 inch flats, a bright and a small blender.
Okay.
Hey, Ian. Hi.
I'm gonna get on here.
You're in. So, Ian, we're using our usual palette plus black tonight.
Okay, I can't see you. I don't know why.
Oh, well, let me put this in the spotlight and that might help. Do you see the easel?
Nope, I can't see anything. I don't know why. That's the weirdest thing. Hmm.
Huh, I can see you.
You can? Oh, that's even weirder. Okay.
Your camera is turned on.
I thought it was on.
Hmm.
I'm looking for my raw umber.
You might have a an open window that's blocking your
Okay,
Zoom.
maybe. Hold on. Oh, I don't know. It's just, it's all blacked out. It's the weirdest thing.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, I'll put myself in the spotlight. Hey,
Hold on, it's all blacked out.
it's still all
Reopen.
black.
Oh, it says it, something, hold on. No? Hmm. The heck is this? This is just bizarre.
Anne, you might want to restart your computer.
Okay, let me go out and come back in. I don't know. I'm leaving now. Okay.
Okay, see you in a second. All right, and for the rest of you, just give me a thumbs up when you have your palette ready and your brushes set out and water if you need it or whatever you might be using. You're using oil.
Sean, is uh, is it, I don't know, acceptable to put some glazing in so that the paints don't dry so quickly? I tend to have a problem with the paint drying. If we're
Yes,
doing subjective, would that help with that? I mean, subtractive, excuse me, subjective, subtractive.
yes, that's perfectly fine. We're only doing subtractive for the first bit. So
Okay.
I'm using acrylic tonight as well. And I didn't
Okay.
put anything in it to retard the drying.
Okay. All right. I won't then. Thank you.
Sure. I love your hair, by the way. It
Thank
looks
you.
really good on you.
Thank you. I've done this once before. I let it grow long enough to have a little perm wave, and then I just tousle it and it's done.
It's so flattering.
Thank you.
It reminds me of the pinup girls,
Oh,
Vargas.
yeah. Thank you. Wow.
Hey, did that work in? Awesome.
Sorry about that.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem. Those things happen, and it it's in direct proportion to our frustration with technology. All right, so lovely people, we are starting our series on still life. We're using a full palette tonight. My only suggestion is replacing cadmium red medium instead of the alizarin crimson. So use a cadmium red medium if you have it. Cadmium red medium mixes better with cadmium yellow to make an orange. So we want to have a beautiful warm orange. We'll also be starting off with raw umber. You will want to have some black. If you don't have black, which is perfectly fine, you can mix uh, red and blue together with the umber to make your own. Now, one more time on those brushes, dig out your small brushes for tonight. With a still life, there's a lot more detail than usual, so I'm using 1/2 inch brushes. Most of these are 1/2 inch flats, one bright, and one small detail brush. So tonight's a good night for smaller brushes. I'm going to use a large fan brush for the initial underpainting.
Hmm.
So ladies, when you have your palette all set up, give me a thumbs up. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Lynn. Okay, thanks, Ann. So one more thing you might need is some kind of a I use a knobby washcloth, but you can use a paper towel if you prefer. I like the texture of the washcloth, so it's attractive. You're going to be getting paint all over this, so whatever you use, make sure you can get paint on it. Okay, so a quick word about our composition. The reference photo we're using tonight is this gorgeous delight. If I were to put, get my lines here, my rule of third lines across this, it would intersect with this pumpkin that's facing us and with the butternut squash that's tall. This would be the rule of thirds in the middle here. So this is going to be a strong focal right here. And then because of the contrast of dark and light on the stem of the butternut squash, as well as the placement, it's going to wind up being a focal as well. So as an artist, I want to downplay this because it's a big, confusing shape. I'm going to simplify it. And I want to play up this because it's far more interesting, very organic looking shape. And I want to spend a little more time doing that. I'm also going to crop some of the negative space shape. I'm working on a smaller canvas. So I don't want it to be too cramped. So that's a bit about composition. Now, on the canvas itself, we're going to start off with a thin layer of umber. So by thin layer, what I mean is you want to wet a bigger brush in whatever solvent you're using. You want to keep your mixture milky, but still with enough body to the paint that it's going to give you some coverage. And then I'm going to cover the whole canvas very quick. All right. And then when you have a good, even coating, and keep in mind if you're using acrylic, you want to do this very, very fast. Then get your towel, dip it in some water so that you have some space, some wetness on that towel. Now, where that first rule of thirds line would be, I want to erase out and make the general shape of the pumpkin. So I'm lifting up and I'm doing it in a spiral motion and making the simple shape. You don't have to be too precise. Underneath the edge of that pumpkin, I'm going to a space and lift out a triangle. This is the shape underneath the pumpkin. So it's actually what's behind the pumpkin. And the triangle also shows me where the orange pumpkin leans up against the pumpkin that's facing me. Almost dead center on the bottom is the white pumpkin. The white pumpkin overlaps. I'm lifting up real strong for that white pumpkin. I'm using a lot of water on the washcloth. There's a little triangle of negative space between the white pumpkin and the orange pumpkin. And lifted that up. Okay, so the white pumpkin is in front of the butternut squash shaped pumpkin. That one's a little bit taller than the orange pumpkin, so I'm making it a little bit taller. And I'm not lifting up the entire shape of it. So this one has some lost and found edges on it. I'm just lifting up the light, letting the rest of it melt into the background. Okay, the same is true for the butternut squash that's laying down. It's right next to the one that's standing up. And you can see there's a little bit of light underneath it. And when we're subtractive, we're just taking out the light. So you're not erasing the whole shape of things, just the light. All right, last touch. The direction of your whites makes all the difference in the world here. So for the tabletop, I'm starting in the corner and going diagonally, and I'm lifting up without using a whole lot of force so that the washcloth leaves a pattern, and that will read like wood grain. Now in the front, those strokes need to be up and down. And then as I get to the butternut squash, those strokes need to start going diagonally. And that will help create that illusion of perspective on the tablecloth. Make sure you get to that before your paint dries. Right. Stop when you've done your subtractive part. When everyone has reached this point and they have a good subtractive sketch on their canvas, give me a thumbs up so I know you're all caught up. Thank you, Florence. Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, Lynn. Thanks, Dan. All right. So we're going to work from dark to light at this point and move through the values and mix the colors as we go. So I want to start off with a really good foundation of dark. Now we have a beautiful umber in place, but I want to go one step darker. So using my 1/2 inch brush, I'm going to take a little bit of black just on the tip. The umber is still wet, so it will mix with the umber as I paint. Starting on the right side where that butternut squash is laying on its side, I want to make sure that I have a strong dark on the bottom and that there is a cast shadow directly under it. So we're going to be putting a cast shadow underneath all of these objects. The cast shadow is the darkest dark. I'm going to take that cast shadow over to the other butternut squash, which is standing up. Now, notice that you don't see any bottom at all on this squash. You see nothing. It's just a lost edge. So I want to keep that really dark. There's a sliver of light that's between those two squashes, but everything else is very dark. So I'm keeping that dark. Now, under the white squash, there's also a cast shadow. Notice how the white squash, the white pumpkin seems to melt into that background. So we want to keep that a lost edge of a cast shadow right underneath it.
Excuse me, Sean, what colors are you using for the shadow?
Just black. And I'm going right on top of the umber, which is still a little wet. So I'm picking some of it up in my brush, which is fine. You don't necessarily want to have just black. You know, having the umber works well too. You don't want it to be too graphic, in other words, so that there's a black line. You want it to be integrated into the dark. Okay, so once you get past the white pumpkin, the pumpkin that's facing us, the whole bottom edge of that pumpkin is darker. So I'm going to go ahead and put a shadow on that bottom edge, as well as the cast shadow underneath it on the table. You want the objects to look like they have weight to them. So there's a heavy dark shadow underneath them. Okay, so now we're done with the cast shadows that are underneath the objects. We're going to move to some of the darks inside the objects. This is where light logic steps in. Now, on this still life, the light is hitting, hold this up, the light's coming from above. It's hitting the top edge of the still life. This is like a donut shape. Here would be the hole in the middle. The pumpkin itself is rounded, coming out of the hole in the center. So the light's on the top, then it's dark close to the stem. It's light in the middle because the light's hitting the high point in the middle, and then dark as it goes away from the light. So it's more of a donut shape or a bundt cake shape with a thing in the middle here. So try to keep that in mind as you're painting it and make your strokes follow that shape. So keeping that in mind, I'm using just a little 1/2 inch brush to make these lines. Same black, again, with a little bit of burnt umber since it's on there. And I'm going to start by making that stem towards the center, sketching it in place with the brush, and then making some of the dark wedges, lines in between. It's okay if the lines are thick because we're going to be adding a lot of paint in here. And by the time we're done, the lines will be much thinner.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, hon.
All right. Now, once you have that one pumpkin done, I'm not going to be using that same black for the white pumpkin. Instead, I'm using brown, thinning it down just a little. I'm going to let the center part of it be a little less defined. And I'm just putting some of the dart shapes in place so I know where the pattern of darts is on the white one. Notice it's the same concept of light logic. The darts are towards the center on the top, and then as you go around, they're towards the outer edge on the bottom. Okay. When you reach the point where you have your strong pattern of darts in place, let's take a moment and have a look. I want to make sure that everyone's got a really good strong pattern of darts before we move to the rest. So when you reach that point, give me a little wave and I'll take a look and put your work in the spotlight. Okay, Florence, wow, you cut it real quick. Make sure you unmute if you want to talk.
Mute. Okay.
Yes, you did it. Okay. All right, Florence, the tabletop, it's a little chaotic in the erasures, you know, on the texture of the wood. You might want to go back and make that a little more intentional so that the marks go towards the side. Like take a wide brush
Okay.
and the little paint, pull it towards the diagonal, and then in the front, pull it straight down diagonal on the sides, and that'll give you that sense of perspective on the wood. Let me see the squash for a second, the 2 butternut squash. Okay, the top of the 1 butternut squash could be a little more rounded, the taller one.
Okay.
I love the bottom. The bottom looks really beautiful, very elegant. The one that's laying down, I have no problem with. So good job.
Okay. You know, the problem is I don't have the original. Somehow I can't get it on my phone. I just have to see how I do that.
It's attached to the meeting information.
Yeah.
So where I sent you the link.
Oh, it's way down there. I didn't see it on the bottom. Okay, it's fine. Thank you. Okay,
Right.
I got it.
Good work.
Yeah.
All right. Whenever you're ready, let me know and I'd be happy to see the next person.
Sean,
Yes.
could you repeat what you said about the white pumpkin? I was kind of still on the orange pumpkin when you said, what is it that we're supposed to do with the white pumpkin? Color wise, we don't use black, we use
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to think, what on earth did I say? I don't remember breakfast, much less. I think what I said is not to use black, but to thin down some brown because it's a little more higher key than the other pumpkin. So,
So when you say thin down, you mean mix with white or mix with water?
water.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Lynn, you look like you're ready. Ooh, that's already looking beautiful, Lynn. Nice, nice. So you have a good amount of lost and found edges already in this painting. See how your erasure behind the pumpkin that's facing us shows off the whole shape of the pumpkin? That worked well.
Mhm.
Also, the two butternut squash, the way they're intertwined, that's beautiful. Works very well how you did it. You may
Yep.
decide to go even darker in your background
Okay.
as you paint. Notice the dark you put around the rounded pumpkin that's facing us.
Mhm.
Look at how well that pops the others. So I
Mhm.
was thinking the same thing myself. I might come back in a little darker towards the end.
Okay.
Oh, good. Very nice. You're ready for the next step. Anne. Hey, Anne. So nice to see you painting always. Um,
It always feels good to paint.
eh, that looks great. So I'm not seeing a major problem. I love the moodiness of the background. Be
Mhm.
careful on this pumpkin that's facing us. Make sure that the lines connect to the stem in the center. You want it to be darker around that stem, especially on the top. Also, let the shapes on the outside of the pumpkin, when we start adding it, let them be very bulbous and not as perfectly round.
You mean on this pumpkin?
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay.
You'll be adding a lot of colors, so I'm sure it'll happen naturally. Those two butternut squash, they're gorgeous together. I love them. They're gonna
Great.
steal the show.
Thank you.
All right. Suzanne, are you ready? I don't think I've harassed you yet.
I can be. I was trying to see what I was supposed to do on the squash, but I can catch up.
Well, all we've done is put the pattern of darts in at this point. So lift that up. Oh, Suzanne, you never cease to amaze me.
I'm
You
I'm
keep in
seeing
the
Anne.
spotlight.
No, okay.
So I don't really see any problems at all. I love the negative space. The more you let there be lost edges, the better this painting is going to be. So the bottoms of those two beautiful butternut squash, let them be lost. Don't try to define the edges of the bottom.
Okay.
Notice on the reference photo,
These two.
yeah,
Yeah.
the one
Okay.
that's standing, you see nothing of the bottom of the one that's standing. The one that's laying down, the only highlights are in the middle of the stem and above. So you don't have any of those highlights on the bottom. I would get rid of them.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought these were two separate pumpkins. I now see what you're talking about. In my monitor, it shows it differently than in my printout. I didn't realize that was that was another squash on its side. Okay, I'll correct.
Okay, good job, my friend.
Thank
That's
you.
it. All right, I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to make those changes. Okay, 1 minute until we move on. Okay, we're going to start painting the pumpkins from the right, moving to the left. So we'll start with the butternut squash, move to the other ones. I'm starting off by making an orange. I'm putting just a touch of the cadmium red and a glob of yellow because, you know, red has a much more tinting power. I'm looking for a brick red. I don't want this to be too vibrant. So I'm going to touch a little bit of umber in with it, just a dab. And that umber is enough to knock it down some, make it more of a brick color. So it's not a vibrant orange pumpkin color. It's more of a burnt orange. Now we are going to be practicing making our strokes follow what we see on the reference. So I'm starting with this squash here. I want to get the lightest part right here behind the squash. And then I'm going to make my brush curve up and follow the shape of the squash around. So I'm pulling my strokes towards the stem. And it looks as if the pattern is radiating out from the stem. So this helps me to make the shape of the squash. While that paint is wet, I'm going to blend it out a little bit into the background. I want the edge of the squash towards the back to be a lost edge. All right, keep it simple on that little shape. Don't spend a lot of time. Once you have that squash that's laying down, we're going to move to the one that's beside it. I'm putting a little more of the umber into the color, making it a bit darker. I want to start on the dark side of that squash. And I'm connecting the two dark patches with that burnt orange color. Now, as I move through the squash, it's moving towards the light. So I'm going to add more yellow to the mixture. The more yellow, the more vibrant and light that color gets. Always making sure that my brush is following the shape. I'll pull the brush strokes down, following the shape. And then around on the top rounded part. Make your brush define the shape. Remember to keep it very lost on the bottom, very lost. All right, we'll be putting other colors on the squash later, but we're gonna move to the pumpkin that's facing us. This is the big orangey pumpkin. And it also has some of that brick orange color to it. So I'm putting a little more red, a little more yellow, mixing the orange. And I'm gonna put a touch of umber in with it. You don't need to add the umber if you're using oil because it will still be wet. But if you're using acrylic, it's had a chance to dry. So you'll need a little bit of umber to make it more of a burnt orange. Now again, I'm going to use my brush to sculpt this pumpkin, and I'm seeing the color more starting on the outside. Each of those lobes has a rounded shape to it. So I'm letting the thickness of the brush build the shape. All right, now we're going to work on the darks on this pumpkin for a second. We've got some good overall orange color for it, but we're going to work on the pattern of darks that's towards the center and towards the bottom. So I'm taking red and mixing it with a little umber and some yellow. And I'm making a much darker uh, version of the pumpkin color. It's actually more of a reddish ochre color. Starting towards the center, I'm going to pull this color from the center onto the bottom of these lobes, right around the top. So this is going to give them a shadowy look, making the pumpkin curl in towards the stem. And I'm only doing that on the top half. On the bottom half, I'm going to have that go out towards the back. So I'm pulling that color from the back towards the middle. I'm starting at the back, and this is going to make it look more rounded from the back towards the center part. This is part of light logic, the way that light logically falls on an object. Keep in mind, you're painting a donut shape. So the hole is going to be a little bit darker towards the middle, and the bottom part's going to be lighter. Rinse your brush when you're done. Okay. Now with your clean brush, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to put some light on the top part and on the middle. So to make that light, I'm taking some yellow, putting it into the same mixture, and a little bit of white. So I'm lightening up that mixture. It makes it kind of a golden color or a yellow ochre now. I don't want it to be too over mixed. Now the light is towards the top. So on these lobes that are facing the light, I'm going thicker with the paint on the side and shaping them. As I get towards the middle, the light changes. So on the bottom ones, the light is on the curved part coming out of the stem. So it's towards the middle. I know this is confusing, but it's important to think of the form you're painting and make your brush follow the form. Okay, start putting your finishing touches. If you lost any of the original color, you can come back in with pure orange as needed. All right, and now we're going to move to the pumpkin that's all the way to the left. It's facing away from our other pumpkin. It's leaning up against it. I'm starting off with a lot more red. So it's more of a reddish orange. This is for the back part of the pumpkin that's leaning up against the other pumpkin. So it's reddish orange towards the back. I'm mixing a little bit of umber in with that reddish orange. And I'm putting it in the front. Now this is between the reddish orange and the really bright orange. It's the form of this pumpkin. So it's actually darker towards the middle because we have some reflected light from the table lighting up the bottom, which gives it that red effect. And then for the front of the pumpkin that's facing all the way to the left, I'm going to mix up some yellow orange. So I'm putting a lot more yellow into the orange. I want it to be brighter. So the red orange for the bottom reflected light on the pumpkin, yellow orange for the top where the pumpkin's facing the light. Try to start your strokes at the center where the stem is and fold the paint out. If you're having trouble getting the yellow to cover the dark background, and a little bit of white in it. The white will give it some body and make it less transparent, makes it more opaque. Don't get too hung up in detail. While you have that strong orange, yellow orange, use it as a highlight color on the butternut squash, on the section that's the standing one that's facing into the light. Put a few strokes of that brilliant light yellow orange color. All right, we moved through the values on the pumpkin side, on the orange side. Now we're going to move through them on the blue side. So 1 minute to finish up. I want to make sure everyone has the big shapes of the squash in place. We're going to work on the white pumpkin next and some of the stems. So 1 minute to finish up on the pumpkins before we move to the stems. Okay, now we're going to play with color and color theory. So I'm starting off with orange. And we know from our color wheel work that the complement of orange is blue. So I'm going to take a touch of blue, neutralize this orange with the blue. So I'm putting the blue directly in the orange. When I mix it together, it gives me a teal color, a greenish color. It's a really pretty color. If I want it to be a little more blue, I can go bluer. Now I'm going to add some white to this color. And this is giving me like a frosty green color, which I want to use for some of the stems. So this frosty green color is going on the part of the stem facing the light.
Sean, is it ultramarine blue that you're using?
I believe it is cerulean.
Cerulean. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Now I'm putting this on the stems in a few different places. All right. Now we're going to play with some of the color on the white pumpkin. I'm using this as the base where I neutralize with the complement. I'm going to add a little red to this mixture. The red is the complement of the green. So I'm again neutralizing with the complement. I have some white in here, so that's making a shadowy violet or gray color. It's a beautiful neutral. This is the neutral that I want to use in the shadow parts on that white pumpkin. So I'm taking that violet gray color and putting it where the darks go. Again, remember the concept of light logic. This shape is like a donut shape. So we're seeing a lot of dark close to the middle. And then as you move around the shape, the dark moves to the side and then the bottom. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with the lights on the opposite side. So for the lights, I'm starting off with white and then putting a little bit of yellow in with it to make it a light yellow, very, very light yellow. Not, don't want to overmix it. I want it to be more white than yellow. And I want the edge to be very hard up against the background and the other pumpkins. And I'm painting just the light parts on the white pumpkin, letting the brush follow the shape of the pumpkin and sculpting it out of paint so that my mark making, my brush strokes really show the shape. You want to pull the paint towards the center, following the pattern of lights along the top. And then when you get to the bottom, the pattern of lights are more towards the center and the middle. Okay, so 1 minute to finish up this part. One more minute. All right, so now we're going to work on the table a little bit and some of the light behind the object. I am going to mix up some of that same color. So I have yellow here, yellow white. That's right about the same value. I'm going to put a little blue and red in with it and make it a violet. The violet, when it's mixed with the yellow, neutralizes. If it isn't neutral enough, you can always throw a little bit of umber in with it. We want to make this a wood grain, but have a little color temperature to it. So I'm putting a little umber in with the mixture. This makes it, grays it out a little. Now, with this color, I want to reassert the shape, the negative space shape behind the object. While that paint is wet, I'm going to hit it with a wet brush and pull the edges. And that'll help create some of the texture on the wood grain. If you want the wood grain to be more pronounced, you can put some of the lighter color in the foreground. I would do some linear strokes, side by side strokes with your brush, and keep to the pattern of the wood grain so you're going straight up and down in the front and towards the diagonal edge on the side of the canvas. Once you have those lines in place, wipe them out a little bit with a wet brush, and that'll give you just the texture. All right, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I don't think I'm going to do much else. Oh, I think I may put a highlight on the butternut squash. So for the highlight, any highlight, I want to really thin down the white paint. So I'm taking a little bit of white paint and a lot of water. I'm making it more of a wash. I'm going to start at the very top of the squash. And then just wash it down. That may be even a little too much right there. And lift it up. One nice thing about using a wash when it dries, it's a subtle light. It's not as jarring as an intense highlight. So if you want your highlight to be more intense, don't thin the paint down. All right, now that's my story and I'm sticking to it. It's a simple painting, simple still life. I don't want to get too complicated or too fussy with details this late at night, but I do want to take a look at it tomorrow, have some coffee with it, and make a decision. If it needs anything, I'll do it then. When you reach a point where you've done all you can for one painting session, let's take a look. Suzanne, you ready?
Yeah, if I keep working it, it's gonna go work too much.
I hear you. Let's see.
I got a couple of things I like to do tomorrow with coffee, but See.
Oh, wow. It never ceases to amaze me what you guys come up with. So, I purposely simplified the stem on that one big butternut squash just because it
Mhm.
was so crazy looking at
Yes.
your light logic on the pumpkins is wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
Wonderful. I know that was a challenge. Uh, the standing butternut squash has a little lump. Be careful with that. It should be a rounded top, but the top does look like it's got a little bit of a lump to it. I might thin that out. And I wouldn't
Here,
do, nope, other side.
other side. Okay.
Yeah, you see what I mean? You may be able to see it on this picture.
Square.
Yes, exactly. So
Yes.
just round it a
Okay.
bit, and that's it. It's a gorgeous piece. I love your use of color and light there. Worked out well.
Thank you. Thank you. I really enjoyed this brush, this kind of rounded
Really?
edge.
Uh-huh.
I really liked it, especially with the making the roundness of the pumpkin curves. So this is
Wonderful.
my new favorite brush.
I believe that's a filbert. And, it's good to use your brushes and find out what they're good for that way. File
Mhm.
that lock it in the chest for next time.
Yes.
You'll need it.
Great.
Good
Thank you.
work, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, whenever anybody else is ready, just give me a wave. And then Lynn, you can be after Lynn. Ooh, and your two butternut squash shapes sealed the show. I knew they would, and sure enough, they did. They're they're so voluptuous. Um, I would work a little bit on the light logic on the two pumpkins that are on their sides. I
Mhm.
know it's really confusing, but it's worth pushing through because then it helps you to understand the form of it. And when you get the form, it'll really sing. It's worth a few more minutes to make that sing. The pumpkin all the way to the left looks beautiful, looks like it's at an angle, have no problem with it.
Mhm. Great. I'm
What
gonna
do you
have
think about
coffee with it in the morning, and I have some time to paint tomorrow, so I'm gonna get back to it. Thank you.
Awesome. That's wonderful. That'll be a beautiful piece. I'd love to see the finished piece maybe next week before class if you've got it then.
I will do
Or,
my best to work on it.
okay, sounds good. Lynn, whenever you're ready.
Okie dokie.
Hey,
Hey.
wow. Lynn, you went stronger and darker with that background. And boy, did it
Mhm.
create some drama. Isn't that pretty?
Mhm.
It pushes the objects forward, and you created more of an illusion of space by doing that. I think that worked really well. I
Oh,
love
good.
your lost and found edges in this piece.
Okay.
The white pumpkin is the
Mm-hmm.
most convincing in terms of the donut shape.
Mm-hmm.
The orange pumpkin, that light logic is a real challenge. I get it. I
On the
think on
big
the,
one or this
yeah,
guy?
no, on the big one.
On the big
I
one,
think
yeah.
you got it on the top part
Mm-hmm.
because I can see how the shape is curving in. On the bottom part, it could use a little work there,
Okay. Yeah, I
but
can.
not tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe
Right.
look at it tomorrow and see if you think so too.
Okay.
All right. Good work, my friend. That's
Thank
beautifully
you.
done.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It's a gorgeous piece. I'm really surprised at how well you guys did. Florence, are you ready? Go ahead and unmute.
So,
pretty.
Oh,
Oh, Florence, that's very painterly.
yeah.
Very painterly. I
Yeah.
love your
I really like
pumpkin
that.
that's facing us. You know, the white pumpkin and the orange pumpkin that are side by side and facing us.
Yeah.
I love those two shapes. You did a great job with those shapes and also with the wood grain in front.
Okay.
Created a
Best
nice
part was taking
illusion.
the rag and wiping out. I thought that was great. Like that, but anyway, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's a great method. Oh,
Good. It's beautifully done.
thank
Um,
you.
if you choose to do the homework, be careful with the shapes of the pumpkins. You know, be true to the shapes, and they'll read more like what you're intending.
The shape.
Yes, ma'am. The
Okay.
shape, the hard edges. All right, you lovely people. That was a challenging exercise, and you handled it beautifully.
Thank
Now,
you.
I'm sending you a suggested homework that's almost exactly the same characters, but in a different formation. So
Okay.
it'll be the same palette, the same techniques, and so forth. If you have time to do it in the next week and you want feedback, I'd love to see it in an email. Otherwise, meet me here 15 minutes before class and we'll take a look at it then. It is always my great pleasure and honor to keep you guys up late and paint it.
I'm so glad that I started again.
Me too. It's really nice to
Me
see
too.
you, Florence. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
Everybody have a terrific night, and I'll see you next week.
Night, ladies.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
all.
Bye.